Wonderful. So I really appreciate everyone joining today on this post-blizzard day. Hopefully everyone's getting around without any problems and staying safe and warm. I am Lori Capola, and I am the Senior Associate Director of primarily the team that handles students that are interested in health professions and STEM careers. Excuse me, I am among several advisors in my office, and we're pretty much broken up into cohorts. But for today's purposes, I am the person who, if you make one-on-one appointments with, you'll most likely visit me. And I do have other colleagues that also can talk to STEM students and engineering students. So I have been with the university and the Office of Career Strategy for a little over 9 years. Prior to that, I spent the majority of my career in industry, and before coming to Yale, I had left my most recent job, which was in telecommunications with AT&T. So I'm hoping I can bring some of my own industry experience to today's presentation, and then also leave you with a couple of nuggets that you could take with you and actually implement and take some action with them. The hope for today is to have a little bit of interaction. I'll pop over to some websites and show you some tools that we have. And one of the goals for today is to try and build your toolbox with these resources and know how and when to use them. So we'll begin by talking about today's agenda. So it's going to be broken up into four areas. So we're going to first talk about the landscape, why this matters, like looking at networking and what the job and internship search looks like and how that matters. We're going to look at some salary data and then also overall how OCS can help you. So OCS is the Office of Career Strategy, which, by the way, is your career office, right? So we do advising for all of the undergraduate population. So we are your career office. So know that we are there to help you navigate through your career journey. The second part of today's presentation is going to be focusing on the job search. The third part, we're going to roll into networking because that's also important in the job search. It's multifaceted. It's not just one without the other. They can work really nicely together. And then the last part will be kind of summarize what we talked about, thinking about what your next steps are, and basically finalizing what you can put in your toolkit. So I'm going to start out today with the some data that we have, right? This data that we've gathered, it's not data from our office. It's mainly data from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So the data that I'm sharing with you is data that has been gathered from surveys between employers and colleges. So I wanted to highlight some main areas for you before we even started today's presentation, just to give you an idea of what this outlook looks like. So we have data on bachelor's degrees, graduates, and then the good news is that nearly all categories of reported majors are showing healthy increases. 3.1% for engineering majors, and then 6.9% for computer sciences majors, which that's a very, very optimistic outlook compared to previous years. So this is data compared to 2025. Below the QR code, there is the link there, or you can scan the QR code and look at the more detailed executive summary. But I just thought for today's purposes, I really want to emphasize that the engineering students are projected to be the second highest paid category of majors for the class of 2026. And we hope this trend continues. Overall salary is up by about 3.1% when compared to 2025 salary. Also, the math and sciences are expected to be the third highest paid majors for the class of 2026. And you can see the overall change in that salary as well. And then business engineering and computer science disciplines dominate the list of bachelor's degrees in demand. And it's been shown that at least 60% of employer respondents have plans to hire finance, mechanical engineering, and computer science majors from the class of 2026. So why is this important? I think it's important so you have a broad overview of what does the market look like? Your skills that you're gaining as a STEM and engineering potential engineering major are going to be really in demand. So there's been a decent increase from last year to this year, which is always good to see. And it's also kind of having you think about like, what are your skills worth in the marketplace, right? Like what salary would you be expected to get when you have these certain skills? So, maybe you have an idea, but this could help you kind of show you like what are some of the salaries that are being paid out to some of these jobs. And these are also these are entry-level jobs. These are not like people that have been working at this for more than 1 year. So the actionable takeaway for this slide for you today would be to access this survey, bookmark it, and then kind of like keep in mind this number for yourself when you look for internships that would be paid, and when you look for post-grad jobs. So as I said, the Office of Career Strategy is your career office. So I want to share with you some of the things that we can do for you. So we offer one-on-one advising. We offer events and workshops. We bring employers on campus, and we have large career fairs. We have a database called Yale Career Link, which is going to be the place where you're going to schedule appointments, perhaps sign up for an event or a networking event or a workshop. And then we also have interesting data that is in our outcomes area of our website. And so this could help you try to determine what direction you might want to go in with your academics, and then possibly how that can tie into your longer term goal for an internship or post-grad. So the outcomes data has first destination data from any given year, and it also has a 4-year out survey, which you can see like graduates that graduated in 2021, what are they doing now? Do they attend graduate school? Are they working in a different industry than when they first started? So it's just a way to collect data and to just know this again for your own benefit. We have newsletters that we definitely would recommend you subscribe to. You can choose certain career communities for yourself. And so, definitely look at our website and stay in touch with us. So what I'm going to do right now is this is still in our part 1 of our presentation. I'm going to just kind of show you that this is the link to the Yale Career Link system. And the image on the right is just showing you where, some of the options you have. You can search for jobs in here. You can look at events. You can look at employers that have registered with our system. Resources, there's a bunch of great career resources included behind the resources tab. And then the last one on the right is the make an appointment tab. So, you can register for career fairs, as this says. You could, we have job boards, and we have one job board that I really want to demonstrate for you today. It's called Career Shift, and it does sit behind the resources tab on your career link. So Career Shift is a job aggregator, and this company goes out to job boards and employer websites and scrapes data from there for the benefit of the students that we serve. And so there's some basic career shift functions in here that you could look through, but I'm going to do a quick demo for you today just to show you how you could utilize it. You could utilize it for jobs, to search for jobs, but you can also utilize it for your networking plan, which we're going to talk about in part 3 of today's presentation. So there are some tutorials here that Career Shift populates and changes out very frequently. And then there's a short video here if you care to look at that. And so what I'm basically going to do today is I'm going to show you searching for jobs, and then I'm going to go a little bit deeper to show you contacts, and go a little bit even more deeper to show you how you can connect with some Yale contacts in here. So for this demonstration, I'm going to put in mechanical engineer, and I'm actually going to put a company name in here, but you don't have to. But I just want to show you the benefits of this. I usually will always recommend to use an advanced search, and then job type, you're going to choose whatever applies. For today, we're going to do full-time, and the experience level is going to be entry level. And we're going to do a search here. So there were 2 jobs for mechanical engineer for this particular company. And you can select view job description, and this gives you like a summary. But pay attention to the skills that they show in here, because this is going to be relevant later on in today's demonstration. But some of these skills it would behoove you to have some of them on your resume if they're relevant. Because your goal is to try to match as many skills in the job description as you can, as long as you have achieved those skills. It's going to give you a little bit of description of what they're looking for. And then you could always go out to the actual job listing. So there's a preview, and then you could access the job listing there. But I want to also show you the benefit, I would say the added benefit for this. So you can select on Find Contacts here. And as you can hopefully see, there's like 10,000 contacts that have been found for this particular company. But I want to narrow it even more. And because it provides the school attended option in here, you want to select Yale, and then you want to do a search on that. And it goes down to 4 contacts. So the 4 contacts in here, you can dig a little bit deeper, go to contact details, and you can see that Jonathan earned his MBA at the School of Management. So why is this important? Well, it's important because when you're building your networking list, this is a connection you can make with Jonathan. So you have that common piece of information. You both he attended Yale, you're currently attending Yale. So it is an easier segue into making a connection with him. Okay, so that's one of our first demonstrations. This is like I said, you'll see this again later in the presentation, but I think it's something to kind of hold on to. We're going to have another quick demo on this page, and what I want to show you here is we have a job trends and salaries database that is fed to us from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So this is updated on a regular basis, and it has hundreds of job titles in here, and it's got a lot of other great information that I think would be useful if you're, you could utilize this for exploring careers. You're not sure maybe, do I want to look at, materials engineer, or do I want to look at robotics engineer, or you're not quite sure yet, or maybe you want to look in something in the tech field. So this is a good way to explore those careers. It's also going to be useful as we walk through the demo, to just keep in mind, what skills do you think employers are seeking when they're hiring for an engineering role, right? So, maybe automatically you think technical, but would you also think that soft or evergreen skills are as important as technical ones? So as we step through the demonstration, I just want you to keep those questions in mind, and kind of see for yourself, what you think in answer of those questions. So this is this is on our website, and it is under the Find Opportunities tab. And you can search a couple of ways. You can search by keywords, or you can search by industry and occupation. So for today, I'm going to do the industry and occupation, and I'm going to choose science, tech, engineering, and math. And then you do have to select an occupation, and I'm going to go with materials engineers for today. You can choose a location, but I'm just going to keep it at nationwide for today's purposes. So it gives you a summary of what materials engineers typically do for their functions, whatever, their day-to-day looks like. And then this really cool thing is they give you a generic version of their core tasks. So, in the opinion of this data, these are typical core tasks for a materials engineer. So when you look through these, you see some technical ones, you see some analyzation, design, direct, monitor, evaluate, conduct testing and supervise testing, guide technical staff, right, in developing materials, determine appropriate methods for fabricating and joining materials. So you have to kind of think about those technical skills. Review new product plans. But here we go into like supervising, planning and implementing, planning and evaluating new projects, again, supervising, problem solving, which brings in critical thinking skills, conduct training sessions. That has a lot of competencies in there that are really rooted in soft skills, and present technical information. So, your presentation skills and your communication skills have to be at a certain level. And then writing as well, too. So both your verbal and written communication skills. So as you can see, just from these core tasks, I think you could say that it's both. Your technical skills and your soft skills are just as important to employers. It also shows you trends for the next 10 years. And this is a bright outlook kind of position. So it's expected to change by 6.3%. It also gives you top employers to look at. So this is useful because you can use this to start your employer list on who you want to reach out to. But it also shows that, there's a variety of employers and a variety of industries in here that materials engineers are working at. Education level, it's a little over 50% have a bachelor's degree, and then we have about 38% that have gone on to either some sort of advanced terminal degree, so doctorate or PhD. And then we have our annual earnings here. We show 90% of the people are on the lower end. This is the median. So it all really depends on your years of experience and your skills that you bring to this. Here's your technical skills that you'd want to include in your resume if they're relevant. And here's your core competencies that are going to like fit pretty nicely into the next slide I'm going to show you, because a lot of these are going to be your soft skills. It's going to be your critical thinking, your active listening. Not only are you receiving information, but you're also actively asking questions about what this person is trying to convey to you. And they're also in here in order of importance. And then we just have different job titles that this materials engineer would fall under. Okay, so the next slide I'm going to share with you is going to be skills-based hiring. So again, the NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they work together to develop 8 career-ready competencies that many of our employers are looking for. There's the QR code. If you select that, you will be able to see like a broader definition of each one. But I also want to add my own spin on this, which is the communication, the ones that are in red, communication, critical thinking, and teamwork, to me, really stand out more so among employers. And that's based on it's ad hoc information that I've learned from employers whom I've met at career fairs and who've come to our office. And also just, by reading job descriptions and seeing what are some of the critical skills that employers are really looking for, because not only do they want someone to be able to technically do the job, they also need someone who can communicate, who can think critically, who could work well on a team. So in addition to these other 5, but I think these top 3, these are the top 3 for me that I think are going to kind of really overshadow the others. So I would ask you, think of a time that you demonstrated teamwork or critical thinking on a project. Just kind of think about that. And can you describe that in 2 sentences? That's like a typical interview question that you're going to get when you seek out an internship, when you seek out a post-grad job. So those are kind of like these thought-provoking questions you want to kind of like pay attention to. Pick any 2 of these, or any 2 of the skills. You can think of a time with communication and teamwork, or any of them, leadership, and just try to describe that in 2 sentences for someone so they can understand, like what you did, how you did it, and the result. Something that'll help you a little bit in this area to try to do a little bit of an assessment for yourself will be this skills assessment exercise. So I have an actionable takeaway here. And when you select this link, I'm asking you to complete the self-reflection exercise. Pick out 3 of your top competencies, and then pick out 2 that you believe you need to develop, or where there's a gap. So the ones that you need to develop more in, then go ahead and find some experiences. Check out some clubs, maybe start research, or, continue in research. Think about some activities you might be interested in that will help you develop more so in those 2 competencies that aren't as strong as the other 3, right? So the goal is to be as even as you can with the competencies. So it's more holistic looking. When you present your resume, when you interview with someone, it comes, it shows like just more of a holistic development that you've achieved. So it's an exercise you can try, and I'd encourage you to to see what the outcomes are for that. The next slide is just a slide I put in here because I do get a lot of questions from students about hiring timelines. I would encourage you, though, not to get too hung up on the actual timelines. They are here they're here for you as a guide. But I would also say the reality of a lot of these industries that hire is that they hire when they need to hire. Internships probably follow more of a structured timeline, but even those I've seen could come out of could happen outside of these timelines. But this is just like a snapshot, just to give you an idea of what some of these industries look like. And then I'm also going to just share with you this screen here, this page here. This is on our website. Again, all different industries are on here. And then you have the STEM industry living here. And then it opens up to some other things in here and reminders to update your resume, LinkedIn profile, etc. Okay, the last slide for this part of the presentation is going to help fill your toolkit a little bit. We have the first one is a self-paced Canvas course you're welcome to take. And the good thing about this is that you don't have to start from the beginning and go all the way to the end. You could, maybe a first year would like to do that, but maybe a junior or senior knows they just want to go into maybe the networking piece or something else, right? So the good thing is you could pick and choose what segments you want to, or what lessons you want to listen to. I've also included kind of like a job search tracking tool, but you might create your own with this, like with, when you start looking at internships and you start looking at postgrad jobs, you're obviously going to have something that you can track this with. But this kind of gives you some ideas on what to look for when you're searching, right? So companies of interest, some leading questions here, the actual application process, like what position you applied to, because you're going to be applying to a lot of positions, I'm guessing. So it gets a little muddied after a while. And then, you can also put on this tracking tool like your networking contacts. But we are definitely going to double down on the networking piece in a bit. There is also a 5-step career decision-making process that you can take a look at. We have a short video on it, and then it kind of goes through like a self-assessment. We talk a lot in our office about your skills, your interests, your values, your personality. How does all of that mesh together to provide you with the best opportunity for you to feel fulfilled in what you're doing, right? You want to kind of think about, does your worldview match your work view? And are you, like what are some of the main things you're looking to achieve in, let's say, a postgraduate job? And in an internship, what are some of your goals? Like, what do you want to seek out? What do you want to find during your internship? A lot of times during an internship, you're determining, I hear a lot from students that say the internship actually helped me decide I don't want to do XYZ. So, and that's good. I mean, because that's the whole point of doing an internship, right? You're trying to understand what's going to work for you, what kind of functions you want to do. And so I think it's good to do that. And then, there's other steps in here. So you can kind of go through this on your own and just see, take from this what you think is important for you. Then I also included, I had this top 15 search engines for engineering jobs. And then this last item here, this actually is a really cool database. So this person actually, he updates this quite often, and his next update is going to be in March. But this is really a nice way to like have a database where you could choose, like you want biotech or if you want chemicals, whatever you're looking to do here. I just happen to do engineering and architecture just for today's demonstration, but then you can, kind of go scroll through here and then see, like what what kind of companies sound interesting to me, right? And you could select them, and then it'll bring you to their career page and internships and early career opportunities. And then you could jump over again and say, okay, so what does Stanley Black and Decker have for me? And there's their early career page. So it kind of helps save you a lot of time, to be honest with you. And and because it's updated so frequently, I think it's really good to look at this every now and then, and to just kind of make lists of some companies that sound really interesting for you. And then the last piece on this page is going to be related to international students, because I get questions very often about where can I find opportunities to work in the US as an international student. So I put a couple of resources here. Going Global is in your Yale Career Link account. So that's going to be part of your toolkit. And then My Visa Jobs will give you a list of companies that are actually offering sponsorship. And another note for our international students, if you haven't done so already, you should go visit the Office of International Students and Scholars, OISS, and talk to Ozan or one of his other advisors that are in there, because they're super helpful for our international students. Before I move to networking, did anyone have a question or comment or just anything you'd like to share? You can speak up or you can put them in chat. Okay, then we will move on to networking. So I don't know how many of you have done any type of networking. Maybe you have, and you don't really call it that because it was probably more of an informal or organic type of networking. But I start with this definition only because a lot of us, and I'm included in that, have a little aversion to networking. But when you really think about networking and kind of think about the amount of people you interact with on a daily basis that are potentials for networking in any way, it doesn't even have to be your developing your professional network. It's for your social network as well. So I highlight this definition to kind of say to you, this is okay. This is what happens, right? I put some synonyms on here for you that hopefully make sense to you as far as like reciprocation, because there are times where, like, I'm actually networking with, and I'm actually sharing one of his slides with you today. We network with each other. Like he comes to us for certain things, and then I will go to him if I feel like he has contacts in other areas that I think we can bring onto campus. So the relationship works, and it's a professional relationship. And since getting to know him, I've gotten to know a couple of more people from that networking relationship. So, you're really just sharing information, you're forming trust, it's helping you with teamwork and your communication skills. So I think it's a part of your professional development that is very important in your professional development, but also in your social development. Um, so why do you have to network, right? Why can't you just apply for jobs and be done with it? Well, you could, but the issue with that is that you amongst probably 50, 100 people possibly could be applying for similar jobs or same jobs. And the other part, because of that, you want to kind of have a leg up, right? You want to see if you could get to know someone that's in that department or in that company that you could perhaps connect with, right? The other part is the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of jobs are never publicly posted. You do see a lot of jobs out there, but there are a lot of other jobs that aren't posted. So it often happens where, let's say you get called in for an interview, and maybe the interviewer feels you're not the exact fit they're looking for that position, but they do know that there are two other positions that are going to be posted, and they tell you about them. So that happens a lot. The same thing, like if you were to talk to people, not even in an interview situation, just a conversation with someone, just, they can basically say, yes, we do have this posted, but I do know for a fact that there's going to be two other positions posted that you might be more suited for. So you want to get on someone's radar. That's really what that is about. It, it, it says here the best time to network is before you need a job. So yes, I would say yes, I agree with that. So you want to start as early as you can. If you're in the like, you're looking for a position post-grad at this point in time, think about who you've already networked with, right? And maybe go back to them. And as I mentioned, there's two ways to build your network. It's either the formal way or more informal or organic. So you're going to be probably asking yourselves, if you haven't done it before, like, how do I begin? Where do I even start? Well, the good news is you already have contacts in your network that you may or may not realize you have, right? So think about your professors, your research mentors, PIs, or even grad students that may be working with you more closely in a lab. Your residential college deans, your FROCOs, friends outside of Yale even, within Yale, your peers, classmates. If you have some type of part-time job or an on-campus job, think about your supervisors, coworkers. If you've done an internship, keep those connections going. If you do volunteering work for someone, those are connections. Again, think about how many people you interact with on a daily basis. If you did a stroke tally, it's probably quite a bit. So how can you add to your network? We're going to talk about this on the next slide. I'm going to show you the peer networking lists. And we've already looked at Career Link to a point. We looked at Career Shift. And then I would say LinkedIn, Yale has an alumni page you'd want to kind of keep track of. And also, if you're looking for a post-grad job, you want to set your setting to open to work. And then also work on building your LinkedIn profile, which we have a resource for that as well. But the actionable takeaway here is to think about and write down 5 people you already know in a field you're interested in. You might have several interests. So if you know someone, if you have 3 interests and you know one person from each one, you have 3 people already. So think about this as your starting network, and then you're going to build upon it and expand it systematically. Okay, we're going to do a demo again, and I'm going to show you you're going to hear different names. The peer networking lists is basically they could be called the Yale College Alumni and Summer Experiences class list, but we also refer to them as the peer networking list. And then I'm going to show you just quickly the LinkedIn alumni page. But let's get started with the peer networking list. So this is under your network tab on our website. And along with the peer networking list, it's got information on building your LinkedIn profile, and it's got information on informational interviewing, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So I think I mentioned there are two different lists. There's the class list and there's a summer list. The class list are the first destination locations, and then the summer list will be your peers that have done a summer internship. So if you're logged into CAS, you'll be able to see this right away without logging in. But I'm going to download both resources, but I'm going to do one at a time. So the summer list is going to happen first. And with this list, it's got a little bit more information than the class list. The summer list will have information about the interview experience. It's also going to have information about the projects that you worked on. And it's also going to ask if you could, whoever's filling this out, if they could talk about the atmosphere and culture of the company that they worked for. I think these three columns here, employer, industry, and function, are important when you try to parse out information on here. You could choose major, but that might narrow your options a little bit. But what I would say to initially do for this list, because the positions on here, I would probably deselect seniors, and you're going to have, because this is the summer of 25, last summer, so the juniors that did an internship are now seniors. And I would say from here, then you could narrow your search even more by choosing function. And we're just going to use engineering. And then if you wanted to narrow it even further, you could, choose an industry in here if you choose to. So it's really your decision how broad or how narrow you want your list to be. And what I would suggest is when you are happy with what you've filtered, then you just take this and you add it to your own networking page, that your networking sheet that you're going to be using and keeping track of. The class list is very similar in that it will be, it's going to be an Excel spreadsheet. The only difference is it does not have those other three areas about interview, culture, and projects. And I also want to point out, because you might be thinking, if I just randomly reach out to someone, are they going to know why I'm reaching out and or is it going to be odd, right? Well, anyone that's on this list has agreed to be contacted from other Yaleys. So you don't have to worry about that. So then you have employer, industry, and function role, and then you have major here as well. So, again, you can choose what suits you. I'm going to stick with engineering for now. And I'm also going to see if we have what happens here. Yeah, so I just also chose, technically engineering is not an industry, but that's like something, I don't know why we show it as that, but I think it gets you to where you need to be. But you definitely could see some of these companies here are engineering related. So, these are these are students that have graduated last summer or last May, and they are currently working at these locations. Now, to build your list more, so then you're going to do the same thing, extract this and also put it on your own networking list. But to continue building it, you would probably want to choose a couple of more years too. So if you wanted to do the class list for 2024 and then also the class list for 2023, I think those are probably good ways to just like create a larger networking list. And then you are going to have that and you're going to systematically start reaching out to everyone, which we're going to talk about in our next slide. Before I do that, I'm going to jump really quick to the LinkedIn page for Yale. And I'm just going to show you down here. You can select alumni. It's going to be over 152 people that come up on this list. And then you'll be, again, with keywords or company. And then once you start narrowing it down, you'll have people that show up down here. And you can start adding those to your networking list. Okay, so you've gotten your list. You have your networking list. You looked at some jobs. You have all that perhaps on one large spreadsheet or some sort. Where do you start now? What do you do with all of this information? Well, the jobs you're going to probably be applying to, but at the same time, you're going to be setting up time to meet with people that are on your networking list. So there's two ways that we recommend that you could use to start doing this. And these two ways, the informational interviewing and the clause method, work really well together. Informational interviewing is basically you interviewing potential employers or supervisors to find out more about the position they might be posting or finding out more about their company or finding more about them and seeing like what skills and what courses did you take during college or grad school? Do you recommend any things that I can do? So it's going to actually just be conversational. And they're not long. Informational interviewing, they're probably 20 or 30-minute sessions. And, it's something that it's a way to break into that and break the ice a little bit so that people understand that you're seeking information, and they also understand you're probably trying this as part of your networking strategy, and that's okay. But I also feel like the clause method. So the clause method was developed by Ryan McGinnis. He is a UMass Lowell, but he's a product marketing manager for Meta. And we got in touch with him maybe a year or so ago, and he came in and he spoke to some of our students that were able to attend. And he talked a lot about networking and how to break into tech if you're not a tech person. And it was a very informative discussion. And what I'm using from that presentation is the clause method that he has developed. And so what the clause method, the main goal of it is to help you to understand that networking is not just you meet with someone once and you're done. It ends up being like a development of a relationship with that person. So he steps you through this framework And basically, he uses C's for common, so find common ground, right? So we talked about the peer networking list. We talked about family, friends, your personal network, right? Then when you set up the informational interview and you're in that situation, you want to implement the L part of clause, which is listen, right? So show you're being thoughtful of their time, do your research on the company and possibly like their career path. Ask them questions about, specific gaps that you may have in your background or your skills, versus some of the strengths that they might have that makes them successful in their job. So it's your informational interviewing type of step. And then there's some leading questions here too that you can look at. Then, the A is for ask, but you're not quite ready yet to still ask them for a referral if that's what you're seeking. So what you would want to do at this stage is ask them for specific formative feedback, follow up with the relatable advice with them. Show them that you have that demonstrated ability to act on their advice. So those types of like action items mean a lot to people who have spent some time with you, kind of getting to know you, answering your questions, but they're actively engaged with like what you're seeking, like information about where you could seek more advice to be competitive for a particular position that you're looking at. The next step is to wait, which is hard for a lot of us to do. But the reason this is in here is because when you ask them for advice in the previous step, you want to give yourself time to actually go and do something with that, right? So if they said, maybe you should belong to XYZ club, or like maybe think about getting involved with your community in this way, whatever it is, you want to act on that, right? And then once you feel that you've done a good enough job with that, and it also could be, it doesn't have to be a heavy lift, because it also could be just revisiting your resume, and continuing to talk with people. It doesn't even have to be like a big, like I said, like a heavy lift. It could be something as simple as that. But you then want to go back to them and follow up with them because you've already spent by this time a decent amount of time with them, and you want to show them what you've done. You want to share it with them. So let's solicit their feedback again. Let them know what you learned. And then you can be specific with what you want their help with and why. And that might be time for you to ask for the referral. So it's building blocks. It has to build upon each other. It works much better if you approach networking in that way. That's why it's recommended to start whenever you can. And even with people that you could even just try it out with a family friend, let's say, and see how that goes, and you can practice that way. I have a QR code here for informational interviewing that just gets you to our website page. And then I just included a sample email here. And there's more on this page as well, but in the QR code. But I mean, I think the goal of this is to keep it simple. You don't really want to overwhelm them with a lot of information. People are generally busy and they don't have a lot of time to kind of read emails in that detail, but just pretty much keep it concise. And your ask is down here. About the, whoops, sorry. Hang on. went a little crazy here. The ask is here. If you might be available for 20 to 25 minutes to discuss your experience, right? So, this is just one sample for you to kind of think about. All right, I have an assignment for you. I would like you to start building your network this week, okay? Between this week and next, let's say that. Remembering your informational interviewing clause that we just went through. So I'm suggesting that you use the peer networking lists, but you can also feel free to use any of the other tools that I showed you today. But I would like you to seek out 10 to 15 contacts, and it could be a combination of your peers and alumni. You probably would want to look at different years because you may not get 10 to 15 in 1 year. Start drafting an email to request an informational interview and then send it to all the contacts that you've acquired. And you could either send a cold email or you can message them on LinkedIn. It's totally your choice. Track it. Keep track of who responds or who does not. And then if you don't hear from anyone, or you only hear, let's say you have 10 people and you heard from 3, follow up with the other 7 in 2 weeks and send a follow-up email or LinkedIn message. And I would say if you feel comfortable doing this, let me know. Send me an email on how it goes, how it's going. Let me know. I reached out to 10 people. I heard from 4. And I'm going to follow up in a couple of weeks with the other 6. But with the 4, I already set up informational interviews, and I have certain questions I'm ready to ask them. So just let me know. I'd love to hear how that all goes. So we only have a couple of more slides left, and I'm going to just kind of put those in front of you now. These are just references for you again, some more tools for your toolkit. We have a big interview service. So big interview is the AI resume review service that we have. It also does AI interviewing for you as well. So what I would suggest is if you feel you have your resume at a place where you want it to get reviewed through like an AI tool, you can do it without a job description. If you have a job description, you could do it with the job description as well. You can also get your resume reviewed. We have 15-minute quick question appointments, or if you want a 30-minute appointment with an advisor, you're welcome to do that. The LinkedIn QR code that I have here goes to building your LinkedIn profile. It's a pretty good page that we have, and you also can get some really great information on LinkedIn itself on building your profile. A lot more employers are looking to LinkedIn, to be honest with you. So I would say that's kind of a next step for you if you don't have one, or if you do have one, to see how you could update that and start making connections. And again, for this next slide, I talk about, creating job alerts and connecting with companies on LinkedIn. I think these are great ways to keep in touch with what's going on with companies that you're interested in. Job alerts, those jobs come right to your email, and you could take a look at those. Networking does take time. It's building relationships. So, kind of lean into that. And then again, the reminder for the NACE Career Ready competencies and the visiting us, visiting our website, and then visiting with an advisor is always beneficial. So this is the end of the presentation, and I'd love to hear from anyone if you have any comments or questions. If nothing comes to mind at the moment, you can always email me, and we can chat. I'm going to stop sharing at the moment. Okay. Okay, if there are no questions or comments, I want to thank you for your time. And I really enjoyed presenting to everyone and hope everyone stays safe and warm.